bathroom. Did you know they even have waistbands for your feminine hygiene products? So it's just nice to feel accommodated and appreciated. And I just wanted to share. Bye, everyone.
Yep, Clint's girlfriends are always appreciated, predominantly by him, since he's taking care of them and hasn't even shown up here since he is now spending full time with them. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Rudowski here of the bestpoliticalshow.com, and we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developing right now, as of course there's a lot of crazy things to talk about right now, as of course we just had a major presidential debate. Today is also the 23rd year anniversary of 9/11, as a lot of people now are talking about Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala. Yeah, we're going to try to reframe that as best as we can, as of course Ukraine also just launched one of its biggest attacks on Moscow. Lots of news developing right now, as we're going to be getting into it with Mark Dice, an OG in this game, as well as Richard Gage of Architects and Engineers, that truly has been doing some of the most important work when it comes to, of course, breaking down the discourse surrounding today's anniversary from a scientific point of view that I think is more imperative than ever to try to understand. So we're going to have a lot of people calling in today, and joining us for this conversation is Lauren De Laguna, who came in last minute. Thank you, Lauren, for coming in.
Yeah,
who are you?
No problem. I'm Lauren De Laguna. I'm an attorney out of Arizona, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, Steph, since Clint totally bailed, you have to take his spot now. You have to talk.
Yeah. I know. I'm here. This is Steph of We Are Change, and I am officially taking over Clint's seat.
Yes. Okay. We are going to be doing our best to try to take callers. I think we're going to try to take callers in about an hour from now from members of LukeUnfiltered.com. As of course, if you sign up to LukeUnfiltered.com, you get a lot of really cool offers of value. You get 3 masterclasses, you get a forum, you get a members-only t-shirt store, you get a crap list items at the supermarket that you should avoid. We have seed oil cards, and we have special events where you guys get free tickets to, and you guys get the ability to call in to today's show. I am in the Telegram channel, and we will be going to someone in about an hour, and that's where, of course, I am at and where you could communicate with me directly. We're going to be doing our best to read any and all super chats during today's conversation, but we prefer you guys use mysuperchat.com, and then with any new caller now, we will be, of course, also giving out free supplements from wearechange.shop, as, of course, this is a great way to give back to all the people who want to participate in today's conversation. As today, we also got a rare sign of kind of unity, as there was a very interesting photo op down at Ground Zero in New York City, where a lot of very prominent people actually stood next to each other, as a lot of people are having kind of mixed feelings about this. Some people are saying this is a great thing. Some people are saying this is kind of a strange thing. But Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Michael Bloomberg all stood together in a very interesting kind of show of unity that a lot of people didn't expect to see. I'm going to pull up this story. As I do, I'm also going to be calling Mark Dice, who's going to be joining us for this particular conversation. Yeah, I don't know how Joe Biden and Kamala felt about those comments, particularly as, of course, Joe Biden is standing there, and there are some people in the crowd literally chanting, "We need you, Donald."
Yeah, that's pretty, I mean, Kamala's riding on a high right now after last night, so she'll probably let that slide off her shoulder, but that's pretty telling about where the American populace is.
Well, this is also New York City, and this is also a lot of people that were predominantly affected by the events that happened there. As of course, New York City overwhelmingly is a Democratic city, so seeing that kind of support there is pretty fascinating, pretty interesting to say the least. This kind of them all standing together was, I think, a little bit awkward for some people to see. I don't know how the rest of the American people are kind of responding to it, but I think it's fair to say that a lot of individuals are seeing this as a kind of peculiar moment in our political system where they do seem kind of uncomfortable standing next to each other.
Yeah, especially because Trump was never a part of the in crowd. Like, there used to be a time in which Democrats and Republicans would come together and it'd be considered normal. But then when we stopped going to each other's inaugurations and stopped supporting one another, it became a rare sighting, and this is beyond rare. I mean, first time Trump ever met Kamala was last night, and now he's having a second meeting with her already this morning. It is actually nice to see, though. I like to see that the country is able to come together for things that are important, such as the memory of 9/11.
I think we're trying to get Mark Dice online. Mark, are you on with us right now? As it looks like your video isn't coming through. I am texting him right now to make sure. So this is the difficulties of being a producer and host at the same time. I'm trying to figure out all the logistics here as our co-host bails because he's sleeping right now. As Donald Trump had also some very interesting particular comments on that particular day that a lot of people are kind of rehashing right now that I think are also important to kind of think about in retrospect with everything that is unfolding today. Here's a video clip of Donald Trump 23 years ago on national television with his, of course, initial responses to all of this.
The World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation. And it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, they were very big planes. They were going very rapidly, because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down into the building. So it was getting the speed from going downhill, so to speak.
All right.
It just seemed to me that to do that kind of destruction is easy.
Hey, Mark, how's it going? Good to see you. We finally got you live on air. Good to see you, man. It's been a very long time here, as, of course, we were just playing clips of Donald Trump with his own kind of initial responses to what happened on that particular day 23 years ago, as, of course, we are now live on YouTube with someone that I think is an OG, someone that I think is a legend, and there's so much history. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, Mark. It's because there's so many years that we've been in this industry. There's so many years that we've been collaborating, talking to each other. There's so many things that we have learned throughout all of this. But before even getting into any of the kind of nitty gritty stuff, because there's a lot of background stuff that people don't understand. There's a lot of new people here that don't understand the bigger history here. Who are you for the people who don't know who you are? Because I think you are, one of the most powerful, biggest, important independent media figures out there, in my opinion.
Well, thank you, bro. And you're one of my first, if not the first, YouTube friend, actually. I think we were actually MySpace friends first. That's how far back we go, even before YouTube. So, yeah, for those who don't know me, YouTuber, media analyst. I guess I do a bunch of different things. Probably man on the street is what most people kind of knew me for, or how they discovered me. Basically, just kind of imitating, copying Jay Leno's style, just interviewing morons in the early days of YouTube. And then that just kind of spun into activism. That's how we connected. And then it went into news and analysis. And, you and I go so far back that even in 2016, there were no real like YouTube news channels that were kind of, I mean, I know you're not a conservative, but like truly independent that had huge audiences. And then all of these corporate people came and joined and kind of took it over a little bit. Not only just the liberals, but then you have these big conservative, the Daily Wire, the Blaze, Newsmax and all these things. And I think a lot of them do good work. I have issues with all of them, which is why some people on the right have problems with me, because I will punch right. I am a media analyst, a media critic. And so, like a film critic, I will tell you what's good and what's bad about the media. So,
no, you definitely speak your mind, and that's why we respect you so much. You don't take it easy on anybody. And I think throughout the duration of our understanding, we have seen a lot of movements, a lot of ideas kind of hijacked by different particular groups and organizations. We saw this with the Tea Party when originally it was a kind of Ron Paul movement, and then Glenn Beck took it over. Glenn Beck that also had some very interesting comments about the family members. See, a lot of people want to forget about the larger kind of nuanced points, but you don't forget, Mark. And that's what I really appreciate about you. You have a lot of books. You document everything. You put everything together. And we go back. I just pulled up the video that first kind of really started our sort of not really partnership, but our kind of larger collaboration all the way back in April 11th, 2007. I don't know if you remember the contest that you did, but you did a competition where you said, hey, whoever gets this larger message of truth out there to the general public, I will give you an award. And a bunch of people decided to, of course, participate in this particular thing. Right. And they had signs that they put on highways. They had billboards. They were culture crashing. And then we had this one particular video where we were doing all of that. And then one crazy lunatic, a part of Larry Silverstein's security team, literally came out and set up a fake bomb threat against us, came out and said, you guys got to leave. We said, no, we're not violating any kind of laws here. We're following the Constitution. And then this guy on camera, this is back in the day when cell phones didn't really kind of exist. But back in that particular day, there was a specific incident where he was like, you know what? I'm just going to tell everyone you have a bomb. You know, those strings coming off your bookpack, I'm just going to call in a bomb threat right now.
Yes.
And then that video went mega viral. And then we officially won your contest, and that's how I think Alex Jones got to know of us, and then you kind of helped us out get this larger bump, and then from then on out, we just grew exponentially. But it was pretty much through your contest that everyone started to pay attention to what we were doing.
Correct. That's a great point. Yeah, and I've done, for those who don't know, Luke and I have done numerous collaborations. Some of them have been dumped down the YouTube memory hole, but I'm sure that I still have backups of them. I'll have to post them over on Rumble or send them to you and you can show them on the show. But we've done some great work. And, it is interesting how now some of the mainstream conservative media are able to talk about issues that we and Alex Jones have been talking about for 15 years. And not just, Jeffrey Epstein, which a lot of us had known about for a long time. And now, that's a mainstream conservative approved, quote unquote conspiracy, but a conspiracy fact. But also, they kind of tiptoe around some other things. Operation Mockingbird, which, as you probably know, is kind of my favorite topic, maybe even eclipsed even the Bohemian Grove, which I was quite obsessed with for some time there. But, now we have some people, Candace Owens mentions Operation Mockingbird. A couple people that you wouldn't expect are using that terminology because of people like you, people like Alex Jones, people like me who did help blaze that trail and made it kind of safe, I think, to talk about those things because it was so shocking. I actually just got a text from a friend of mine from college who I hadn't spoken to for probably 20 years. That's how old I'm getting. I think we've communicated through Facebook maybe once, maybe 15 years ago. But he sent me another message and he says, hey, He's like, remember back in school when you tried to tell me all this stuff, and he said, yeah, I really appreciate it. Now I see it, and it's kind of gratifying to know that we were on the forefront of a lot of this stuff and trying using this independent media technology to get the word out, which at the time was very pioneering because YouTube, we're kind of used to it now. It sucks with the algorithm changes and with the terms of service policies, censoring certain questions about a certain events, like the particular anniversary one today that you're not supposed to question. But even this one, even with 9/11, some people are asking, they're just asking the questions because they don't have the balls to actually make any definitive statements. But about Saudi Arabia's involvement, some of the cover up with the commission, some of the other interesting things, Operation Northwoods, the stuff that you're really not supposed to talk about that no mainstream host would ever touch on. And now here it is, so long in the future that it's seemingly, that's in the past. That's like talking about the Kennedy assassination. Like, it's okay to talk about that, but people like you and I and Alex Jones, a lot of others, risked our careers in order to raise awareness about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, people don't understand what kind of pioneer you were in all of this, and the kind of new landscape that a lot of us were in very strange territory in, because we were like, wait, what's going on here? The Bush administration is extraditing people, they're torturing people, they're getting rid of the Constitution. We truly kind of were coming up in a time where no one was fact-checking these people, no one was confronting these people, no one was asking these people any legitimate questions or bringing up these issues to the general public. And then when we did, it was kind of a new kind of activity that was never really done before. So it was not only groundbreaking, and I don't just mean to kind of pat ourselves on the back here, but it was uncertain. We were in a situation where we were on the top of Google videos, at the top of YouTube videos. They haven't manipulated the algorithm there. We were making a lot of impact. And then the corporate media was freaking out to the point of view where they were saying, oh, you're a jihad-loving liberal. That's what Bill O'Reilly described us because of the legitimate questions we were raising about what was happening here. So, just kind of navigating this landscape and looking back at it, it truly was at times, it was like exploring a kind of new territories of new ways of reaching people. And I think you were on the forefront of some of the most creative ideas out there, some of the funnest ideas out there, the bullhorns, the comedy skits, the gold bars that you've implemented. What do you think was the most successful kind of thing that you did that reached the most amount of people? Because there's a lot of stuff that you did, and there's a lot of stuff that I did that YouTube literally deleted without even our consent.
Well, I know with your confrontations, back in the early days of demonetizing, all of a sudden, you just mentioned Luke Rudowski's name in a video, and that's a non-friendly term, and we've seen so much happen. Before I get into that, it's actually such a great sign. The country's obviously teetering on the brink of a communist and financial collapse, moral collapse, intellectual collapse. But it is good that the Bush administration and that the neocons are really no longer, I mean, I guess they're part of it, but they're largely shunned by MAGA and by the Trump administration. I know some of them, John Bolton and others, kind of weaseled their way in, but just the fact that George W. Bush is not involved with the convention, and Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney are endorsing Kamala Harris. It shows great progress that the MAGA movement has separated itself from the neocons. And so people are finally realizing how, I would say evil, wrong the neocon philosophy is. So, and it's people like you confronting these people face to face because, maybe even some of your audience, sometimes you forget about your own successes or some of the things that you've done in the past. But, on days like these, I guess maybe YouTube would probably ban it, but that would be a video for Rumble. Some of your confrontations with these people and asking questions that actual journalists wouldn't even have the balls to ask, with Anderson Cooper, with Sean Hannity, with some of these big names, the Rothschild Kingpin. So it's great. And that's why I've admired your work. Since I think I saw the video you submitted back in, you said 2007 for the contest, the 9/11 Truth Jam contest, or whatever it was called, but. It is interesting how the landscape has changed so much now, because in the early days of YouTube, we never worried about saying something that would get a video taken down, because the only thing that would ever be taken down would be some lunatic posting how to build bombs or porn or just straight up copyright infringement clips or episodes from a show. But, it was the best of times, but it's the worst of times, today. We're all connected and people are kind of waking up, but it is very sad how you have to dance around the things that you say. But to best of my knowledge, YouTube still doesn't understand Pig Latin. So you could still talk about things like, Operation Orth, nay, Ud's way, and they won't understand it or things like that. And then the audience understands it too. And I know some of the people on TikTok are using their own kind of terminology to avoid getting flagged as well. But just a weird situation we're in when you kind of have to dance around and come up with new terminology in order to not get triggered by or detected by the AI systems. So I don't know what's going to happen, man. These next 60 days or 58 days, whatever it is now, is going to be intense. And I think whatever happens, it's gonna be weird, man. We're in uncharted territory.
I feel like it's actually like a good thing that what you're saying, because to me it's kind of optimistic, because now instead of it being like in the subconscious or something that people are not aware of, more and more people, like you're saying, even on TikTok, the younger generations, more and more people are seeing that this is something that's happening in our sphere. This is something that is aware. We have like an awareness of it now. It's not just like in the background. For so long, people like you, Luke, Alex Jones, these things were things that like there was only a small kind of growing community. Now it's just apparent. And I think that is a very optimistic thing, because more and more people are being able to communicate and realize, okay, like there's something happening here and I need to learn more. Some people kind of got it early. Most of our communities have known this for 20 plus years, but there are some people that are waking up right now due to what's going on with what happened in not too long ago with the jibby thing. So,
Aaron Rodgers is talking about Bohemian Grove, on Tucker Carlson. I mean, like it's quite incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson's transition also is kind of very telling here. So is Glenn Beck's. Glenn Beck's kind of transition here is absolutely incredible. People forget he was kind of a never Trumper before. People forget Ben Shapiro also being a never Trumper here, and it definitely does seem like the political landscape has changed so significantly. I went to this year's RNC and I was like, all right, this is going to be like the other RNCs. I'm going to be confronting a bunch of neocons, and I was like, where's Dick Cheney? Where's Mitt Romney? Where are the Bushes? They weren't there. They were all not participating. And now Kamala Harris is toting their endorsement and their support over, of course, Donald Trump, that is vehemently opposed to this larger neoconservative movement, this kind of larger movement that you're more aware of than ever, created the larger traps in our society and the destruction of the Constitution and this national security state that now is going up against the Republican political party, spying on them, imprisoning them, and, of course, using the DOJ in order to try to punish people politically more than ever. So this kind of revolution, this kind of change in our political discourse is very vast. Where do you see it going? Because this is not just a political realignment. This is also a cultural realignment. And are we doing a lot better culturally than we did before? Or do you see us kind of being closer to idiocracy, which I think also is a fair criticism?
I don't know if the culture as a whole will ever be restored like the good old-fashioned America. I think it's just going to be a parallel culture, a parallel economy, and you're going to have a significant portion which are, have awoken, are waking up. I mean, Ron Paul is like a meme now for some of the kids because they're looking back at history and being like, wait, who was this congressman who was warning about all this stuff? And, especially with the inflation, man, because, it's one thing to have the culture rot and to be involved in a bunch of these foreign wars. But when you got these young adults, and I guess some of them aren't even young adults anymore, the millennials are some of them are in their 30s now, and they're realizing like how expensive stuff is and that they can't afford a house, and that they're looking back at how their parents and grandparents were able to buy a house, raise kids, and afford to live in America in at least a decent community with many of them only one job. And so now they're realizing, like, yeah, something is wrong here. So it's not just the culture, but I don't know if we'll have a cultural realignment. I think it's finally people are realizing that Hollywood and the mainstream culture is just toxic. And it always was slightly left, but, in the last 10 years, 7 years, it's just taken a turn because
it's not just left. It went full satanic. It went full devil worship. Yeah. It went full evil.
It did. And there's no other way to describe it other than satanic. And, sometimes I'm hesitant to say that to people in person, neighbors and things. But then when you say it's true, they agree, because there is no other way to describe it, because it's not just liberalism. It's not just, I guess, people getting picky about liberalism versus leftism, leftists versus liberals and things like that. But there is no other way to describe it. It's just so evil and bizarre and anti-human, anti-fundamental of the basic, human psyche and human traits. So I think it's great that people finally have woken up, and now they've almost overplayed their hand, because it's obvious. It's no longer, back 10 years ago when we would see, cartoons kind of pushing transgenderism on kids, like She Zhao, which I think was 10 years ago now. And all these kind of slowly rolling out the system. And then some people would think, oh, you're just selectively picking these isolated incidences, and it's just one cartoon. It's just a couple shows. It's just a couple celebrities pushing this, couple TV shows, only, But now, like, you can't get away from the leftism, from the anti-whiteism as well. And even, finally, in the last maybe year, people are talking about anti-whiteism, because that was also a big taboo as well, because you don't want to be called a Nazi by being like, hey, stop hating white people. Because maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that might have sounded a little bit weird. Like, what do you mean, like, racism against white people? Some people, obviously, there's always been, anti-white racism, but now it literally is systemic, so systemic that everybody notices it. And it took a long time after probably George Floyd, somewhere George Floyd really went supernova, and then people started really kind of noticing, like, wow, there really is a lot of just, not just diversity and cramming, black people down your throats and mixed race couples in every commercial, which even Joe Biden noticed. But it is this, like, spitefulness and hatred of white people. And we had a black president 15 years ago now, and even though he was a communist and I didn't like Obama as a president, I was glad for the country, because that actually was a good sign that we are, the multicultural diversity, in a normal sense, not the leftist sense. But that
probably why a lot of people voted for him.
That should have been basically the end of, the racial strife in America. I'm sorry, I'm just. Here's what happens when you get another YouTuber on your show.
No, we appreciate it.
This SJW mind virus is. All of this is related, like the censorship that we're seeing online, along with this DEI propaganda, the pushing of everyone's racist, all of it because liberals used to be, at least from my perspective, the idea of being a liberal was like you really wanted freedom, you wanted free speech. It was kind of the hippies and all of those people. And
that's who they were during the early 2000s.
Exactly.
I was there protesting the Iraq War before it even started, and it was a bunch of leftists being like, free speech, we got to fight for our civil rights and our Bill of Rights, and now that's totally gone.
And now with the SJW stuff, like as Mark was saying, we're all racist, and so because we're all racist and we have to combat this racism and this anti-trans rhetoric, we have to fight words, and we can't say certain words because that would be racist or homophobic or whatever. And so then they got into the censorship game, and as they got into the censorship game, it's very much affected, especially the younger population. When you ask somebody like, oh, should we amend? I recently graduated law school, and when I went to law school, so many of my classmates were very pro changing the First Amendment to get rid of what they called hate speech, and they were very liberal. And so it's crazy to see how like this Overton window has shifted so much that conservatives are the ones that are like, oh shoot, we should not be censoring people. We should allow people to say what we want to say, when conservatives just like 20 years ago were the ones who were trying to kind of clean up society, they were the ones complaining about the curse words. They were the ones that were complaining about inappropriate language, but now we're just like, give us our freedom to speak.
Yeah, the conservatives were the one back in the day censoring free speech. They were saying, the Dixie Chicks, they can't sing songs against the war.
Right.
This rap album is bad. We got to censor it. And whatever you feel about, rap or all this other stuff, they were the party that wanted to limit freedom.
Control. They
and
wanted
control individuals. And they were implementing policies like the Patriot Act and other
Right.
surveillance states apparatus kind of institutions out there that truly did have a huge negative effect on us and limited and destroyed our freedoms. So this larger kind of transition is not just cultural, but it's also kind of very indicative of the kind of mass hypnosis and mind control that we're seeing instituted on a large scale of individuals that literally flipped their belief systems, flipped their morals, flipped their values, and no one's even willing to even point it out or say, hey, wait, hold on. You guys previously were anti-war. Now you want more war? How's that possible
It's
here?
because these things creep up on society. Just like Mark was saying, like slowly and slowly, they're adding these little cartoons, slowly and slowly, and then it's here. And then we have all of this change. So it creeps up. And that's why I think it was super important how Trump handled this particular part in the debate last night when they were bringing up Kamala's ethnicity. He was like, I don't care. He was like, I really just don't care. Like, why make that the point of contention? This has nothing to do with the reasons why we can't buy food. This has nothing to do with the reasons why it's so hard to get a house like our forefathers and all of this stuff. Like, it's just incredible how they're trying to like shape this narrative and how it creeps in so slowly. And then all of a sudden it's there.
I think it is. It's exciting that the mainstream media is losing their credibility, although they have done a great job of brainwashing and gaslighting the majority of the people. But if you look at like the 2016 outcome versus 2020, President Trump got more Black and Latino votes in 2020 than he did in 2016, despite them calling him a racist and a Nazi for 4 years straight. And so the propaganda didn't work for a large portion of them. And it's going to be interesting to see how this gaslighting works with Kamala, because she's the most amazing, the most qualified person ever to run for president. And you see people like Don Lemon out there getting on the street and actually interviewing people, especially Black women. You probably saw that clip. And he was actually shocked that so few of them were actually supporting him, because the propaganda is not working as well as it was, even though they have this fake prestige of we're CNN, we're the big mainstream. Well, yeah, you got gamers on Twitch that have 10 times the audience. It's all fake.
True.
Another aspect that I think you just brought up beforehand that automatically made me think of everything. It was during the beginning of a lot of this. I really wasn't kind of religious at all. I didn't really see the larger kind of spiritual aspect of this during the beginning of my career, but the longer I went on, you were on this from the very beginning. You were speaking about this. We had private conversations about this as well. This definitely does seem like a larger kind of ratcheting up of a larger spiritual war out there, and the larger promotion of deviancy, the larger promotion of degeneracy seems like an overwhelming kind of common theme here. I like to connect the dots, especially when it comes to kind of transhumanism, and especially when it comes to the larger agenda, the little nitty gritty of all the classified documents and everything else. But truly, when you start looking at this larger battle between us, independent media, and the corporate media, when you look at this larger battle of the populist individuals and everyone else who are, of course, a part of the multinational corporate Federal Reserve banking structure that are pulling the strings here, it does kind of boil down to something deeper in here that the more you start paying attention to, the more you just start seeing it. And throughout my career, I always try to stay away from religion. I always try to stay away from this stuff, but then I'm like, they believe in all this stuff. They're the ones doing the spirit cooking, and they're the ones doing the mock child sacrifices. They're the ones doing the rituals. They're the ones doing the ceremonies. They're the ones through these kind of musical performances that are kind of rubbing it in our face and saying, this is who we are. And it makes me kind of realize, and it made me realize, and it shifted my own personal views and perspective to be like, yeah, I want to be more spiritually in tune to the right kind of belief system, because if they believe in this, I don't want to believe in any of that. I don't want to play into any of that. I don't want to acquiesce into any of that. So that larger transition you were on the forefront of, where do you think we are now? Because to me, this is truly a larger spiritual battle. Tucker Carlson now talks about this wildly, and he was an individual that previously was on CNN talking about how the Iraq war was great. He had a major transition. He had a major kind of interjection in his own life, in his own personal beliefs. And I think we are seeing somewhat of an awakening, but also a spiritual, religious awakening as well, that's looking for those larger institutions to be there for them in this larger kind of fight.
And Russell Brand is a perfect example of that, because a Hollywood liberal hedonist and now is a Christian. And some people you can argue about what kind of a Christian, and do you really believe all the doctrines that this church believes, or this quarter? But the fact is that the guy is reading the Bible, and regardless of what you think of organized religion or the differences between the Catholic Church and the Protestants, like if you actually read the Bible or the New Testament, particularly the story of Jesus and the Gospels, I mean, there really is no question that they contain a divine message that outline the human condition. And thousands of years ago, when they were written, it captures the struggles that human beings have been having since the beginning of time, the struggles of good versus evil, the struggles of conscious and what's right and what's wrong. And it's clear that call them the globalists, Illuminati, the neocons, the people who are running the show, other groups you're not supposed to talk about, they're violating all of the principles of the core religions. Don't lie, don't steal, respect your money. So it doesn't take a genius to see what they're doing and realizing that I mean, it may be satisfying in the short run. It may be a way for them to get ahead. Not only them, just personally violating the codes of conduct of what God has laid down for humans to follow. Ultimately does end in destruction. And I think we may see a massive spiritual revival, like you just said, because people are seeing all this. And Russell Brand, again, the perfect example of it. Just like in the 60s, in the 1960s, there was a huge Christian revival because out of the 60s, when all the hippies tried to reinvent America and, upturn the structure of society and the similar to what we're seeing today. They wanted to break up the traditional family. Some of them went to their little hippie communes and the free love movement. And then they started realizing that the basic structure of the nuclear family and, the overall structure of society, despite its problems, and the human condition is always going to have problems and struggles, but there is a fundamental core of what makes humanity the best that we can be, how to treat each other, how to, kind of tame the animalistic instincts within yourself. And that's kind of what spirituality does. It's to elevate your consciousness. In Christianity, they call it being born again. You're no longer a carnal, animalistic, kind of soulless creature. Now you are a spiritual being. Now you have a new insight. You have a new mind. And so all of these spiritual teachings are, metaphors and words trying to activate processes within the mind to get us to think and act in a different way, to ultimately lead to the best life that we can, to find the happiness, the peace, the security that hopefully we can get in this life. And I think we're seeing a big spiritual revival, and it's probably going to continue with people realizing that the hedonism and the materialism, the godlessness of the liberal mainstream Hollywood isn't fulfilling. And you see even people like Dan Bilzerian now finally saying, like, you know what, maybe monogamous relationships are actually the best way to go, and finding, someone that you love, a life partner, is more fulfilling than the hedonist lifestyle that even he was living for and really made his brand off of.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to start switching.
Before Lauren, just really quick, Mark, I think your camera froze. You might have to restart it really quick. Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I do agree that there hopefully will be another Christian or Judeo-Christian revival and a finding back to God for a lot of people. I think a lot of people that I've spoken to in this space as well, they're looking at, maybe they were more liberal and they were like, let people love who they love, let people have like these poly relationships, let people be who they want to be, let's have as much freedom as possible. And then you look at how their lives end up and what happens with their children in this whole transgender movement and what's happening to society in general and the unhappiness that's come out of it. And then you have like these Balenciaga ads and you have this and you just have Satanism thrown in your face. Even if you didn't believe in God before, now you're like, shoot, I definitely believe in the devil. I see the people who worship the devil, what's happening to their lives. I don't want that. So if the devil exists, then God must exist. And I think a lot of people that's like, before I found God, I definitely saw the devil. And that's what I think a lot of people are experiencing.
I think it's overt now. I think it's in our face more than ever. I think they're kind of bragging about it, and they do it in a weird way. And I think, Mark, you could speak about this because they kind of need your compliance. They need your acquiescence. They need to tell you what they're doing in a sort of some kind of underhanded way, whether it's through kind of the larger symbols or whether it's just kind of sneaking it in a little bit there and there. But I feel like they need your kind of acquiescence to it in order to, of course, fully carry out their larger agenda. And the larger kind of things and that we keep seeing in these small little pockets that keep popping up everywhere, I think are more indicative of the times that we are living in. And it definitely does seem like we are in an ever so kind of quickening. What have you seen in the media landscape throughout the last 20 years that's on your forefront that you're paying attention to the most as this larger kind of attack vector on our spirit and our energy? No, now your audio's off. Just really quick, your audio just tuned out and we can no longer hear you. I didn't change anything on my end, but I think if you turned the camera in and out, if you plug the camera in and out, there might have been a setting on your Skype that could have changed. But go ahead, Steph.
I want to add to that. I feel like this quickening that you just mentioned, that's exactly what I was thinking. This is a way for us to be, as a society, as humanity, evolve quicker, because with this thrown in your face, you have to make a choice, as Lauren was saying. So all in all, this is not really a bad thing, in my opinion. I feel like this is the natural progression of our evolution, and we need to face the truth of this dichotomy that is put before us and make a choice.
Technical difficulties, the perils of being independent media, not having a billion-dollar corporation and interns and tech staff to make sure everything works fine. But yeah, well, the devil tempts. Audio's back, I'm assuming.
Yes, we got you.
So, the devil tempts, the devil doesn't force. And, whether you believe in like a literal devil or whether that's just an allegory of the human condition, it still doesn't matter because it's true in the sense that it is an accurate representation of the conditions that we face. So whether literal, whether allegorical, it still is true. It is an accurate representation of the situations that we're in. And so I think a lot of people are realizing, like I said, that their emptiness is, some of them they're questioning it and they're wondering, is this really the life that they wanted? And, the millennials and part of it is financial, but a lot of it is social media has plagued society. It's a blessing and a curse. It's how we're able to communicate. It's how you and I became friends. But we were fortunate enough to be able to see it from the very start. And so now a lot of these kids just grew up with it just as it was and as it has changed. And now the algorithm that's addicting, and it opens doors to conversations and worlds that people have no business even being in. And it's so addicting that it just screams for their attention. And so that it's hard for people to really just live in the moment and have actual friends and in-person conversations. And so it's this weird double-edged sword where you can reach out and communicate with your friends and family, but at the same time, now kids are able to find their favorite transgender YouTuber that's being promoted by YouTube as this amazing civil rights icon, the next phase of human evolution. They're just absolutely amazing. And, now we're even starting to see, even in California, Governor Gavin Newsom is talking about banning cell phones in schools. And you're seeing discussions about banning social media for kids. And, that probably should have been done 15, 20 years ago.
All the tech executives were doing it to their children. All the larger tech guys who developed the software are not letting their own children use it, but they let everyone else use it.
Yeah. And it would be one thing to maybe allow kids to consume certain kinds of social media, but, should a 14-year-old be allowed to publish videos and comment and open that door? Then some of the leftists will say, well, then it's a free speech issue. It's a First Amendment issue. You're violating the kids' First Amendment rights. But as a culture, even the left in California, like I said, and California's kind of leads the country in things. As California goes, so goes the world. We're the leader in fruits and nuts, and whatever happens here usually kind of spills over into the rest of the country. But even when our own governor here is understanding, probably seeing it with his kids, because these people all have kids too, and they're starting to see the problems. and starting to wonder, oh, maybe we should do things just a little bit differently. And that goes back to the conversation of the sort of the revival,
It's
the
just
spiritual revival, the traditionalist revival, whether or not someone even is religious or spiritual or not. They're probably going to look back on the America, I mean, even of the 90s, because like when I got you by a couple of years, Luke, but when I was in high school, we would look back at like the 60s and listen to the Doors and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and kind of the music, and look back at sort of maybe novelize the life of the 60s and everyone walking around and smoking weed and everything was great and fun. And obviously it wasn't all that, but I think the kids today and the young adults and I guess the adults are going to look back, or are looking back and seeing, what, maybe their mom and dad and grandparents' way of life was actually better than consuming social media when you're walking down the street and being obsessed with pseudo celebrities and a bunch of Instagram models. And, I would even say watching people play video games remotely, but that kind of upsets the gamers. But we're in a weird time, man. I mean, I just don't know, is the pendulum going to swing back? It is. But certain segments, probably the largest segment, is probably lost and always will be lost. Because I don't know if you can put the toothpaste back into the tube as a whole.
Yeah. You got to run with it. You got to run with it, and you got to make decisions in the moment. You can't think back on how it used to be. Technology is here. Changes are here. Social media is here. You need to be a parent. Not you, but anyone needs to take that responsibility if they have children to become a better parent and to make those decisions. I had restrictions when I was growing up. Just because social media is there doesn't mean you get to post whatever you want just because it's like the freedom of speech. Like, yeah, freedom of speech is important, but like, should a 12-year-old be doing that? Like, there are strangers. You're not supposed to talk to strangers. Whatever happened to that? Because the internet is like strangers galore.
It's just unfortunate with like the development of the algorithm. The girl on
I'll be back in 1 minute.
Ben Shapiro's show, I forget the name, Daily Wire. She did a whole segment talking about how she created a fake Instagram account, and she pretended to be a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, and she went in with a fresh page just to see how long it would take for the algorithm to recommend pornographic type videos to her. And it was under 30 seconds. And so these kids don't stand a chance. I remember when I was a kid, social media was just about it was basically just Facebook. You just try to have friends, you try to connect with your friends, and it wasn't about posting essentially your booty online. And it's so funny, there's like this kind of a common meme going around where it's like kids at 13 years old today versus kids at 13-year-old back in the day. And they do these choreographed TikTok dances where they all look super sexy. And you're like, aren't you a teenager? Back when I was a kid, we were like dressing up like Harry Potter and posting that on YouTube.
Yeah,
and
we have cuties on Netflix. We have like the biggest form of degeneracy out there that's absolutely disgusting. And, you could always tell a country's future by looking at its children, and looking at today's youth. We are in drastic, dangerous times. I'm very happy. I grew up literally drinking from a garden hose, riding bikes around. I was in high school before smartphones. I was very happy I grew up that way. A lot of younger generations right now don't have that choice. Everything's online. Everyone's sharing private details. Everyone's sharing private photos. Everyone is being kind of exploited and kind of psyoped in real time. As of course, these social media algorithms, I think, are far more sinister, far more dangerous, not just addicting, not just based on the psychology of gambling and this basic kind of reward system, but I think, to me, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong or right, I think there's a larger dehumanization agenda out there. I think we are living through fifth generational warfare on the youth of this country that are absolutely being obliterated. You look at the mental health crisis amongst the young people, especially around young women who are always predominantly on Instagram. This is a targeted attack. This is a psyop. This is the government and special elites literally trying to create fat, lazy, stupid human beings that could be more easily controlled. This is what I see happening here, and I see a bifurcation of society where we have the people who are paying attention to alternative media, to alternative health, to alternative diets, to alternative lifestyles, and then everyone else who's following the lines, following the cattle to literally be slaughtered. That's my perspective, and and it's hard to kind of quantify because I do see so many more people get it more than ever, but I also see a lot of people negatively affected by this in such a drastic way where I don't have any kind of positive viewpoints about the future. How do you see this kind of landscape? Who's winning this particular larger war? And can we even go back to a society that could be normally run like it was before?
I don't know if we can. I think we're going to have parallel societies, parallel cultures. We're just going to have to be dealing with these people, and you're going to have classrooms where maybe 20% of the kids are going to be normal, or 25, 30% are going to be normal, and they're just going to have to deal with these just whacked out, gender bending, hedonistic, brainwashed, really lazy socialist kids. And the kids who are smart, who for whatever reason, whether they're fortunate enough to have good parents, and even sometimes the parents can do their best job and still they can lose the kids to the culture, at least for some period of time, but they're going to be able to succeed in whatever jobs that they want if they have the discipline and the dedication that it takes to succeed. That is not really all that difficult. It's like you just have to do it consistently because the competition out there is so pathetic, because half their other classmates just don't want to work, won't read, have the attention span of a goldfish. You can't read a chapter of a book because they don't have the attention span to do anything other than just scroll through Instagram and feed their dopamine hits by their comments and their likes. So I think it's going to be a parallel society. It's sort of like what's that movie with Bruce Willis with the time travel, when he was a time traveler and he came back when he was an assassin, and it was like in the cities it was just total chaos, people on drugs, but then some of the normal people escaped kind of out into the country. Looper, that's right, yeah. And we might be like that, where it's just in the cities, in the blue areas, it's just going to be like San Francisco, drugged out, chaos, run down, just dangerous, and then a flight to the suburbs. Because I guess we could restore, but there's been so much poisoning and so much damage, and especially if the transgender epidemic is a chemical-induced situation, which you're not supposed to talk about. With Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did talk about, as you probably saw on a couple different podcasts, but that even went over the heads of some of the primary people on the forefront of that issue, like Matt Walsh is basically, the America's #1 transphobe, according to the left. But, I don't see him talking about endocrine disruptors or the atrazine or the BPA, stuff like that. Stuff that, again, you and Alex Jones and others in the independent media have been talking about for 15 years. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an environmental lawyer, certainly knows the effects of chemicals on biological creatures. And you probably saw it on, I think it was Lex Friedman's podcast, even talking with Jordan Peterson on Jordan Peterson's podcast. He brought it up. He brought up the gender dysphoria issue, the chemicals, the endocrine disruptors, and he just went right over Jordan Peterson's head. And it's like, okay, look, if there is a massive chemical cause for a lot of this that's going on, shouldn't that be investigated? Shouldn't that be stopped? And then you have some of the people who are hardcore, no plastics and filtering the water and trying to keep trying to keep the chemicals out. But if it's not just a psychological phenomenon, it may be kind of both. It may probably interplays a little bit, or there might be a certain aspect of it, I think, which is, psychological and cultural. But if there's a chemical aspect to the gender dysphoria, not supposed to call it a problem, it's the issue, right? Then that opens up a whole other can of worms about stopping that, because then you're not allowed to say that it should be stopped, because you're not allowed to say that it's a problem. You're not allowed to say that there's anything wrong with those kind of people, because that would be hateful. And so, it's up to the cultural leaders like Matt Walsh And those at the Daily Wire might have issues with the Daily Wire. Mainly there's Ben Shapiro, but I mean, they are, kind of conservative ink, conservative light in some aspects, but they do some good work regarding cultural issues. And isn't it up to them and even the other mainstream people, Jesse Waters, who's now, trying to fill the shoes of Tucker Carlson on Fox News prime time. And he's probably getting, 1.5, 2 million viewers. But like, where are they on these issues instead of just complaining about what is happening? And we already know what's happening. Oh yeah, we see what they're doing. It's no longer just a couple isolated instances. What about the cause? And then what about the solution? And that's just one of the aspects. But like transgenderism has become, who would have thought 10 years ago it had become a major cultural issue? I mean, it went from people on Jerry Springer to now they're amazing civil rights, icons, and they're on the forefront of the next phase of human evolution. They're absolutely amazing. But I don't know. There's something else going on here. So can we restore to a normal culture? I don't know.
Yeah, they used to laugh at us. They used to say, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. How dare you talk about AstraZeneca, gay frogs? What is this nonsense? What is this lunacy? You guys are living in your own fairy tale land. And we were calling it out way before anyone else was.
It's a combination of issues. You have the American medical industry, which a lot of people have had their eyes open due to the pandemic about how corrupt it truly is and how it hasn't been helping us. And as we've done a deeper dive into Fauci, how he handled the AIDS crisis and how, maybe there is a huge issue there. Well, the American medical industry is pushing that on us. And then the issue is where is the line between parental rights and government intervention, and when should the government intervene? Because obviously, especially with conservatives, we experienced that issue when we were told that when we were trying to get gay and LGBTQ books out of our schools, they were called, terrorists by the CIA. We were called awful names. And so we wanted the right to have control over our children again. Similarly, these brainwashed people who believe that their, maybe effeminate boy is now a girl, they want control over their baby as well. So should the government, if there is a conservative government, should they be allowed to prevent people from transing their own children? And if so, where is that line drawn? Because it needs to be equal for both parties. That being said, why are we convincing people that their babies, if they're feminine or if they're a masculine girl, that they need to switch sexes? It's mind-boggling. And it's also really interesting that this only occurs, for instance, if you have a mother who believes this, it seems like a disproportionate number of her children are part of the LGBTQ movement than other more conservative mothers. It's doesn't seem like it's actually the child's choice at all or the child's will at all.
It's not, since of course a lot of celebrity children are specifically changed through their genders as well. As of course, it's not a natural phenomenon. I think it's also a cultural one, but it's also a very spicy one that YouTube doesn't like us talking about. So we have to be very careful in how we kind of discuss this particular topic. We're going to probably have to save a lot of this conversation for the other platform that we're going to be going to in just a little bit. But we're almost running out of time here with Mark Dice. Before getting out of here, I still wanted to get your perspective on specifically the debate last night. To me, everything we saw was kind of an Operation Mockingbird project just being kind of visualized right in front of our eyes. You add the cherry on top with Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala Harris right afterwards, calling herself a cat lady. A lot of this was kind of engineered. A lot of the questions, a lot of the issues that they brought up specifically were kind of done in a psychological point of view to try to bait Donald Trump into, of course, trying to make himself look bad. I think they also increased his microphone volume to make him look like he was screaming as well. There were so many underhanded things. How do you quantify what we saw last night, and what are the bigger ramifications of it, Mark?
Yeah, obviously it was 3-on-1. They would supposedly fact check and push back against Donald Trump numerous times. I don't think they did that a single time for Kamala Harris. And I mean, straight out the gate, when they asked her the question, a fair question, surprisingly, they actually did ask it about whether or not, people are better off, or how does she answer the question about whether or not people are better off now versus 4 years ago. And then you could obviously tell went into her talking points. But I don't know how much of the debates actually are going to affect people's vote. I don't know how many people out there are not undecided voters. I think what it's going to do is introduce people to Kamala Harris, because a lot of people don't follow the elections until probably just about now. I mean, I did a video, I think it was in 2017 or 2016, and I asked people, I insinuated that Joe Biden was dead and that he had been dead for 7 years at the time when he was currently the vice president for 7 years. And I mean, like half the people just thought, oh yeah, maybe we should, build a monument for him. Like they just had no idea the name Joe Biden didn't even ring a bell. The vice president of the United States for 7.5 years. So like most people in America probably don't even know who Kamala Harris is, probably have never heard her even speak. They're just watching football and scrolling through Instagram. So it's kind of them introducing Kamala to the country. But I don't know how much it affects the vote. I think it comes down to turnout. Are people going to be excited enough to get out and vote for one of the two candidates? And it's going to come down to probably immigration and inflation. And if Donald Trump and us, it's us, the grassroots, through the independent media and through face-to-face conversations, get people to understand that Kamala has enticed and encouraged these illegals to come in, and that's why your taxes are so high, and that's why part of the reason why there's a housing crisis too, because where are all these people living, and that's why rent is so high. The inflation is one issue with the fiat currency, but with the debate, obviously, it was unfair. I don't think it was necessarily a victory, from either one of them. Donald Trump got some good points in, got his, some good zingers in without kind of looking petty. Even, during the Biden debate, he toned himself down quite a bit because he could have really just smashed him, but it would have been almost seen as bullying. So he toned himself down. He was pretty good, but he did get baited a couple times. I mean, you got to be realistic about it because they carefully crafted those comments and they knew his hot button issues. And, anybody that has any genius, I think, has an equal sized flaw or flaws. And so they knew his flaws. They knew you're allowed to say chinks in people's armor anymore? I'm sure that's racist, but they knew the chinks in his armor and they got him, and he took that bait a couple times. But I don't think it was, it wasn't like embarrassing as a whole. It was just, okay, you kind of understand that they're unfair. It's going to come down to turnout. It's going to come down to people actually getting out and voting instead of just thinking, oh, I support this guy, I like their policies, but are you going to actually go to the polls and vote? Or I guess as an alternative, you could mail in your ballot. I mean, I think there's some issues with that, but going to the polls for some people is tough. You got the kids, you got soccer practice and this and that. And so, waiting in line, some of those places you got to wait in line for 2 hours or 3 hours or who knows. So it's kind of a big ordeal. It's not just like, stopping by the post office and dropping off your mail. But I think the silent majority may speak. But the fact that this race is so close, whether or not you believe the polls or not, it is, pretty close. Shows that the country has gone so far down the, the toilet bowl. I am concerned because this is, we always say, oh, this is the final election. There's no going back from this. There's going to be no going back from this. I mean, if we lose, I mean, you can criticize Trump for, his flaws, which are quite obvious. But it's either him at this point or, straight up communism.
Yes, that's a pretty clear choice here. There's a lot at stake here, and at least we still have some kind of semblance of independent media out there that, of course, is willing to stand up and speak truth to power, as, of course, our days are numbered, and they've been doing everything they could to try to stop us. It's good to see you around, Mark. We just had Alex Jones on last night with Roger Stone. I wanted to reach out to you specifically because I think we're at a time right now where all of us need to come together because if we don't do that now, we're going to be forced to do that in the gulags in just a few months from now. And it's important to put your differences aside. It's important to really hone in, really focus, really be patient, really pay attention to what's going on right now because we are just 50 plus days away from, I think, one of the biggest deciding factors for the future of all of Western civilization. And I'm not just saying that, and you hear it every 4 years, but I think this is truly a larger kind of marker of anti-establishment, independent media, critical thinkers, the base of individuals who are paying attention, saying, hey, this is the time we all got to come together. And then we have all the other special interest groups that are vying for power and control for themselves that they are slowly losing their power and grip over. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Really an honor and a pleasure to have you on here. I always appreciate your work. There's so many videos we collaborated on that sadly YouTube deleted. There's so many things that we did that were absolutely hilarious. They were absolutely funny. Some you have never even seen the light of, as of course we did.
Oh yes,
we did a very great, hilarious video.
We were a little immature at the time. But, yeah. I'm sure I still do have I have the finished products of all the ones that we collaborated on, and they were fantastic. And it's been great. Time flies. I mean, we've known each other for over 15 years now, I think. I mean, I'm losing track of the days. And so it's great to see you stay independent. And you're one of the few YouTube channels that I actually do watch. I'm one of those YouTubers where people are like, oh, who's your favorite YouTubers? Like, I don't really watch a lot of YouTube. I watch the liberal media so that you don't have to. But, I've been a proud subscriber of We Are Change since, I don't know, 2006, 2007, whenever. So it's been great, man. Always good to keep in touch with you. And us independents got to stick together. But you're right, especially now that we're in the final stretch. It's gonna be tough. I'm getting nervous, but it's independent voices like yours that are making all the difference. And if we can just whittle away, a couple thousand people from mainstream here, a couple hundred from this network, and a couple hundred from this. It makes a big difference. And so, you had probably 900,000 subscribers now, and you'd be at 2 million if it wasn't for the algorithm, dumping you guys down. But it's great to know you, bro. It's great to see you still in the game and still independent and just ever evolving and surviving, really, because that's getting pretty tough at this point.
Yeah, there's not a lot of us around. There's Gary Franchi, Jason Burmis, you, Alex Jones. I don't see anyone else back in the day that is still here. So we all got to come together before it's too late. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. I still reminisce about the crazy video that was even too spicy for even before YouTube started. Before YouTube censorship, we had a video where we're like, oh man, we can't do that one.
No, it wasn't that. It was I've always been kind of immature, and I can't help it. But
Same.
you are more of a serious journalist, and especially back then when you were doing the confrontations, like to put that video out, kind of would have made you look a little bit immature. And that was, I was like, I don't know if we should put this up. Luke and I were just clowning around, just doing some silly stuff.
I still laugh about it every time I think about it because it was.
I can't help but be an immature class clown, but I did see. I'm like, you know what? For your reputation, it wasn't like we did anything like terrible. We were just doing some immature skits and stuff. But I was like, you know what?
Now.
This is you are a serious journalist, man. I am class clown, man on the street. I'm the guy who inserts farting sounds of the clips on CNN. So, like, that's not out of character for me. But like, you are a respectable journalist. You shouldn't tarnish your reputation by posting this silly video.
There was another time we posted up a fake sign saying do as you're kind of told. And then we had a wireless megaphone where we were telling people orders and bark. Again, lots of crazy stuff. Mark, where can people find out more information about you? Where can they see your channel?
Come to youtube.com/Mark Dice. Even though I have a presence on most of the social media channels, I have found myself avoiding posting, even on Twitter, on X, because I found that it just absorbs and sucks in most of my time. So I haven't posted over there for probably all year because I write books. You can read my books on Amazon.com. That's kind of my serious side, but mainly just I'm a YouTuber. It's part of my core identity. It's where you can find me over on youtube.com/Mark Dice. And again, always a pleasure talking with you, man. It's great to see you evolving, and like I said, even at this point, being independent and surviving. So keep in touch, bro.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Go subscribe to Mark Dice. Go check him out, markdice.com, youtube.com/Mark Dice. They hit you from the algorithm. I couldn't find you for such a long time. And just double check you're subscribed to him, click the notification button, and YouTube will still unsubscribe you. We're getting hundreds of people unsubscribed every month. And I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense here at all. You're dealing with it as well. But this is why it's important for us to come together, do these videos, remind people, hey, we're still here 20 years later down the line. And I really appreciate you, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Come back anytime. And let's do some more skits together next time I'm in California. I bet we could probably think of some really ridiculous stuff.
Let me know when you're in town.
Absolutely, man. Great
All right, keep
having
it
you.
up.
As of course, we're going to continue the conversation as we're going to have Richard Gage call in right now as well, as he, of course, will be joining the conversation on another social media platform that, of course, we will be going to. This is the platform. We are currently on the front page of it. If you're enjoying the conversation, we still have an hour of it in a fully uncensored way, as, of course, there's still so many issues. There's still so many things I want to talk about that, of course, we are saving for the next particular platform. Before moving over there, Lauren and Steph, where can people find out more information about you?
You can find me on X, YouTube, Instagram at Lauren De Laguna. That's DELAGUNA. Thanks for having me, and it was nice to meet you, Mark.
You can find me on X as well at Steph WRC, or on Instagram at Steph We Are Change. Yep.
All right, go over. We're going to do our best to try to take callers. I know we have Richard Gage calling in. We had him on here last year. We're going to keep this kind of tradition going since the information he provides really is just top-notch, scientific, and absolutely important for people to understand on this particular date. Conversation continues right now on thebestpoliticalshow.com. Go to that link and, of course, join us for the conversation over there, as we are now officially leaving this kind of censorious platform that unsubscribes people from our channel all the time. As